Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Nice to see you again, Cassie.
Yeah, and you, and you. How's it going?
Well, thank you. Very well. Very happy.
It's gone fast,
Great.
hasn't it?
Oh man, how fast? I can't believe we're in the final year.
I know. Somebody was sending out an email and they said, can you have a look at it before it goes out to the consortium? And it said, in the remaining 10 months. And I was like, no, but that can't be right. And then, of course, I counted it and it was exactly right. It was a hi, Danny. It was 10 months and
I
then we're
know,
done.
it's terrifying. How's it going for you? It's all coming together now.
It's interesting. I move between having a sense that everything is possible and we can make a contribution and we can dial down the kind of extremism and polarization, and then I sort of despair that it's sort of all being mobilized by people who are way more powerful than the scientific community, if you like. So I find myself moving between those positions, but we've definitely got our work cut out for us. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, 100%. Totally agree. We try though. I mean, we can't give up because it's too serious. It really is too serious.
I mean, I think the Smidge project was incredibly prescient because look at what happened. I mean, and certainly in the UK, I mean, there were just so many middle-aged people who were, getting criminal records and things like that in their 50s and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. This ignored group is extraordinarily powerful and influential. So
yeah, I think you have an image. We try it out. I mean, since we talked to yourselves and arenas, we try it out. When you think of an extremist, what is the image that comes to your mind? Well, it's usually a male, a young male, so on and so on and so on. But the reality is really quite different now.
Oh yes, totally. And the amount of women getting involved.
I mean, when I've talked to people, sort of, so-called ordinary people, they've always, one of the first thing they've said, well, is my mum. They'll go, oh, my mum, my mum is on Facebook all the time. She's always telling me stories about how this is happening and that is happening. And you think, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, definitely. And we've all got a friend or an acquaintance that's down the rabbit hole. Most people seem to know at least one person that's full of conspiracy theories. I've got a great friend of mine. He's a lovely chap. But my God, he's so far down the rabbit hole, he's irretrievable.
Really, yeah.
I mean, this guy was talking to me about chemtrails and ivermectin the other day. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a popular one, chemtrails, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it all sort of adds together to the idea of, like a globalized control and globalized conspiracy, and that there are these kind of puppeteers who are kind of the difficulty. I've also got friends and colleagues who are the same. Yeah, and it's nothing to do with education or anything like that. I mean, I would say probably now in my life, it's somewhere between 25-30% of people support conspiracy theories of some sort. And then they just always smile sort of benignly at me because they feel like, oh, she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's sort of like, we know the truth and you're ignorant. Yeah, and it's like there's secret knowledge.
Yeah, and it's completely unfalsifiable. If you that's what's so powerful about it, isn't it? Because there's nothing you can put on the table that's going to challenge that person. Once they believe that, most people are the sheeple and most people are asleep, they don't really know what's going on. It's such a nice position to be in. It builds your own self-esteem, so therefore you feel good about how you walk around in the world because you're one of the few people who get it.
Mm.
And at the same time, you can't be, your closest friends can't really challenge you. There's nothing they can say or do or give you any facts or anything that's going to cut through.
No, I think one of the problems is that there is always enough half-truth to make unpacking it extraordinarily complex. I mean, I mean, sometimes it surprises me how beautifully created these short tweets are. Because I saw one, I can't remember exactly what it said now, but I saw one a few weeks ago. It was just a little tweet, like 2 lines long, but there was about 6 concepts that needed unpacking from that. you know, in order to get to the truth. So, you know, you know, you can plonk this in there and it sounds convincing, you know, it's like, it sounds authoritative, but there's so many twisted truths, untruths within that. You sort of throw your hands up and go, they're not going to read a fraction of or any of what I tried to say to debunk any of this or to explain or unpack it. Yeah, so they're very, very good at it. They're really clever, and I think that the other side of the conversation needs to get as clever. It needs to get used to using those tools that they're using against them.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
using
yeah.
their own
I really agree. And I
weapons.
mean, I think that the hard thing is that we often slow things down. But I can see that Danny, I'll pass to you.
Danny. Oh, Danny.
No, I love this conversation. I think for some, maybe this already has started, right?
Yeah, I guess we're talking, at least we're talking about the topic at hand, you know, we're not talking about what we had for dinner last night.
Yeah. So I just see that we also have now Simon join us, Professor Mata. So I guess it's the old panel here.
Okay.
And perhaps we can start the process moving. But I think as also Emilia mentioned, this was already a very good start of our webinar, the conversation between Casey and Sarah. On the extremism and age and the assumptions that we have that only younger people are vulnerable or at risk for this process. But good morning, I guess, or to everyone joining. Very happy to see colleagues joining us. We have colleagues from the Smidge project, from sister projects from OppAttune and Arenas with us today. This webinar is to share knowledge, to learn from each other, from each of the projects, to see what have we unearthed in a way, or how we are understanding, perceiving extremist narratives, recent trends, and where this is moving. My name is Ramadani Doazi, or Dani for short. I am head of research at the Kosovar Centre for Security Studies, and I am part a proud member of this project, I would say, where we work together with Sarah and Lina. So I will not, as they say, without further ado, I will pass the baton, as it were, to Sarah for her opening remarks or opening presentation. Then we will hear, I guess, from Lina, Casey, and then Professor Mata or Simo from Arena. So Professor Mahendran is from the OppAttune project, and Professor Mata from Arena. So Sarah, the virtual floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll share my screen. I'm really, really hoping that the videos that I have a couple of videos. I really, really hope that the videos will work. You know, you can never be 100% sure, but okay. Anybody see that?
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Excellent. Good to have a first start. Right, there we go then. Okay, so hello, welcome everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Danny. It's quite an exciting, sad in a way that we're coming to the end of the project. So it's been an absolute blast, to be honest. It's been fantastic. We've done so much great work. So the Smidge project, social media narratives addressing extremism in middle age, is looking at the extremism online. So let's see if my thing will move down. There we go. So in brief then, we're looking at conspiracy theories, misinformation, extremism online. We're focusing on the 45 to 65 age group. This is because basically nobody has ever looked at them before. They are always the group that is ignored in research. There's been no research to date, apart from Smidge, looking at this specific age group in the context of misinformation, extremism online. So we've been looking, I say we've already done this. It's really strange to moving on. So we've been analysing the extremist discourses through a variety of different approaches, including sentiment analysis, textual analysis, all sorts of different things. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in a moment. So we've been basically trying to understand what the landscape is like with regards to this particular group. And one of the things that we were trying to do is also to develop counter narratives. Now, actually, just picking up on something that Kessie just said, the thing about our counter narratives and what we're trying to do, it is difficult to turn people around once they've already gone down the road towards extremism, watching extreme videos and things and content online. So the Smidge project has been aiming at getting people to take a momentary pause before they go that far. So we're not trying to turn extremists around. We're trying to prevent extremists developing in the first place. And we're also developing, which we're working on in the final year, we're developing recommendations, policy briefs and guidelines so that decision makers and policy makers will have a better idea of how to target their different initiatives and not leaving this particular demographic out of the picture, bearing in mind that the demographic really has, I mean, there are multiple subgroups, but there are two distinct groups, and one of them, the first group, is the disgruntled, unhappy with their lot, not very successful perhaps, or not as successful as they would like. Perhaps they see the world around them changing and they're fearful. These are one group. Then the other group is the extraordinarily powerful decision makers, politicians, captains of industry, the likes of Elon Musk, people who are in the same age group but are making all of those decisions. And they're making decisions for us based on sometimes the misinformation and disinformation that they have got online. So this is a serious problem if policy is being made based on things that aren't actually true. Now, I just want to introduce you to a few things that we've been producing. The first thing I'm just going to touch on with regards to some of the resources that we've been developing. So Kosovo, Danny and his team, they've been developing a platform. This platform contains multiple sources of misinformation, disinformation online. And with what we've been doing is providing this for researchers and policymakers who want to understand what the landscape is like. What are they up against, basically? Right, and this platform freely available to researchers once it's completely live, and this is a growing platform as well. So if you come across something, send it to Danny and he will add it to the platform, so we can build a really comprehensive database of the type and style and of these particular conspiracy theories. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. We've also been doing quite a lot of research in our work package 5, which have been doing stuff on an online survey and a series of focus groups. And as you realise, I'm not reading the slides out because I know that you're more than capable of doing that yourselves. So we were thinking about how do middle-aged people actually engage online, and how do they get to see all this misinformation, this conspiracy theories? What is their processing? Why do they think about that? And what about their personality, the values? Where do they come from? What is the difference, if you like, between the middle-aged and everyone else? Or what are the similarities? So just to give you some further detail, we did a questionnaire, and there were 635 middle-aged individuals who responded to the questionnaire in 4 languages. Over half of the participants were from the UK, but it was a European-wide survey, and as you see, we had quite decent representation across a wide range of other countries. So we looked at some sample characteristics here, just to give you an idea of the sort of sites that are being used and the employment levels of most of the people that were there. As you can see, most are employed. This is another point, of course, that most work done in the older population tends to focus on the retired or the over 50s and everybody over 50. Now, I don't know about you guys, but Most people who are in their mid-50s wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be similar enough to somebody of 85 that they could be put into one category. So what we were doing, we're actually having a better look and a bit more granular about, you know, the sort of makeup, if you like, of this particular group. And as you can see, you know, we've got full-time employment is overwhelmingly the majority. Then we've got educational distribution here, back from a degree to less than high school diploma type of thing. And we also have political orientation. You notice that most people consider themselves to be relatively neutral. So some of the key results here, as you can see, we've got the amount of time spent online, the different topics that we were looking at. As you see, we gave them videos in the survey so they could see if they could discern truth from made up misinformation. And as you can see, there was quite a lot of people that weren't able to discern the difference between real and non-real videos, which of course is a problem. Well, they're not necessarily real, but videos that are producing misinformation. So we found that epistemic beliefs, my apologies, argumentative skills and content evaluation were all things that were really directly influencing people's decision making and why they were going down that road. So there was a large amount of human values that were considered important. These were the things that were mostly important to people. The idea of conformity and tradition and security were some of the things that people were very much concerned about. But one of the findings that I find particularly interesting is this idea of collective narcissism. And this was the belief of the specialness of being in one particular group. And the collective narcissism of the middle age means that they feel special and they feel that they are in some way different from the rest of us. What was interesting, one of the things that came out actually from the focus group was that they tend to agree that everybody else needs to be educated, but they don't. It's okay. The middle-aged are fine. They don't need any education, but the older people do, and definitely the younger people do. So talking about the focus groups. So again, we had two sets of focus groups. We had with citizens and we had them with professionals as well, around about 90 minutes or thereabouts. And we also did several interviews to get some in-depth understanding. So a variety of different things. How much they were using social media, what were they doing with regards to fact checking, and what sort of solutions did they have, that they have some ideas. And we also understood that checking is actually a difficult process. People generally mistrust the social media content, despite the fact that they do tend to share it, though they tend to share more of the funny stuff rather than you know, serious videos and the like. The whole idea of conspiracy being depending on who you are and what your previous views were, so they are subjective and definitely dependent on an individual's perspective. A lot of people found that they were pulling away from social media in some respects because of the aggression and the trolling and some unpleasantness online. So there is a bit of a move away by some people from social media, and understanding that actually these videos and content they see online does have some impact on their beliefs and their behaviours over time. The professional ones were a little different. So they were talking about how the attractiveness of the content is key, but that journalism professional practices have changed and they're using a lot more social media themselves to actually get information. So it's quite difficult for them therefore to tackle that misinformation if they're getting misinformation to report on. One thing that we did realise is that middle-aged are actually far more vulnerable than they realise. Part of this being because the reluctance to be educated means that actually they don't have the skills that younger people may have to discern fake news from truth and reality. Interestingly, Finland, I think, have just started to introduce lessons for children to understand what fake news is and how to avoid it. Again, it's great for the kids, it's great for young people, but the middle-aged is overwhelmingly ignored in education as well. So obviously this has a serious impact on users of social media, and there was concerns from the journalists about how that is being used to control masses and how it can polarize people's viewpoints. So we had some similar themes between the two different groups, but there was more concern about the impact of social media by professionals. So they were more concerned about how that was having an impact on citizens. And they were quite keen on the idea of some structural solutions, such as, you know, some policies, some control over media, moderation, those sorts of things, and to improve and increase the levels of communication and understanding. Right, so that was basically in a nutshell what we were doing in work package 5, as I'm trying to just give a bit of an overview really. Now, a little bit more, this goes on to work package 5 and work package 6, but it's the MOOC and the counter narratives. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the topics of the MOOC. These MOOCs are being designed now for journalists, security professionals, and similar policymakers, decision makers, and the like, so that they can actually gain a better understanding of the landscape and things to be aware of, things to be concerned, what's going on with this, say, the social media architecture, what is that information influence on people, the concerns about biases, that sort of thing. We've got 12 modules that we're developing at the moment, each with around about 4 different elements, and the Smidge consortium have actually been doing the videos for these so that we can create a really engaging set of courses. Now I'm just going to see if this works. So I'm going to move on now. This is, let's see, can you hear that? Can you confirm you hear it?
We
No, we
can't
don't
hear
hear
it, no?
You can't hear it?
No.
Oh, great. I did set it up for the audio, but audio settings, because you really need to see it to hear that. So let's try this. Right, let's see what happens now. Let's take that back to the beginning. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? No?
No. No.
Right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing and then try again. There's always problems, isn't there? Right, let's try this again. Let's see. Include sound. Do you remember the fun we had at the meeting, Danny? Okay, let's try again. Did you hear anything?
We can hear it now, yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Action!
Well,
Oh.
welcome to Brainbox.
I am warning you, Courtney, don't go there.
People are dying because of you.
Please calm down, Xavier.
You calm down, for fuck's sake.
No, please sit down, Xavier, because this is your chance to have your say. I have strong opinions, and I'm not afraid to hold people to account.
I'm driven to communicate the importance of vaccines to keep us all healthy and safe.
I will not be silenced by the mainstream media.
Well, yeah, we chat online and they do their own research, and that's why we know the truth.
Truth? These people wouldn't know the truth if it smacked them in the face.
There are too many immigrants.
Okay, thanks. So, oh, I'm just going to move that on. Okay. Yeah, so that was just a sample of some of the little clips of the counter narratives that we're trying to create for, we're creating for the project. And I just wanted to introduce you into some of the things that we were thinking about whilst we were going through the process, because obviously we don't just make videos. So previously what was happening was that we were everybody was considering those at risk, right? But actually we want to consider a much broader audience than that, not just those at risk, but those who are mildly interested, those who have genuine concerns. We want to be able to actually pull all these people in and making sure that we can involve the audience. So we mainly considering the issues, looking at the genre, and it's okay for there to be differences in viewpoints that are presented in the actual dramas or in the content. So we had several key things that we were really focusing on. The first is obviously having characters that are relatable to the core audience, the demographic. We had, I'm going to show you in a moment one of the actual full videos. So having a plot, having the dialogue, and we spent weeks crafting the dialogue to make sure that it brought in truth from the research that we'd been doing, that we fact-checked everything, and we made sure that we didn't introduce our own form of misinformation. So we were very careful. We also were very careful to make sure that the language that we used was not in any way patronizing or, you know, telling people off. We wanted to make it so that people didn't feel that they were being directly attacked for their beliefs or for their opinions. And there's also that subtext going on all of the time that, you know, we're trying to present the world as it currently is, but also, you know, understanding where this people can go down this route towards misinformation, extremism, accidentally or because they have other issues they're concerned about. So it's important to make things relatable, that and make sure that everything connects well, and we didn't want to get fixated on actually the message of extremism. We wanted to be providing a more subtle approach to that. So that was the point. We were telling a story. So one of the key principles was that we didn't want to just focus on extremism. We didn't want to feel like we were telling people off or shouting at them or berating them in any way. We needed to make sure that there was a story to make people interested and relatable. So we also thought about that there's going to be a huge difference in the sort of viewpoints that people have when they're actually viewing these videos. So we didn't really want to aim at just one sort of very narrow viewpoint. And we did actually involve people in the focus groups. Insofar as we gleaned quite a lot of information and perspectives and understanding about the sort of thing they find attractive and interesting and what would turn them away from the work that we've been doing. So it was important to get that co-creative starting point. Right, I'm just about at the end of this now. I just want to show you the family tea. This is a full-length drama. It's only 6 minutes. So I say full length. It's not 90 minutes. I'm going to wait long. It's called A Family Tea. And I'll just play it and we'll see what you think of it, and then there'll be some opportunity for some questions and discussion afterwards. Let's just hope it actually plays.
You okay, love?
Liam isn't hungry, okay?
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Well, I can tell something's wrong.
Didn't you hear me, Ray? Because I just told you nothing's wrong. Because people like me are always fine. People like me always have to be quiet.
Hang on, Mum. Mum, are you okay?
Nothing's wrong at all, Liam. And actually, nobody really wants to hear what I've got to say, so I'm always fine. I'm invisible.
Mum, it's obvious you're not fine. I want to know what's wrong.
I'm not important. And my opinion isn't important, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because I don't want to feel any worse.
This is because you didn't get that promotion, isn't it?
I'm so sorry, Mum.
Don't. Oh. Right, I'm gonna, It's so unfair because I try so hard and then they just bring them all in from abroad.
Come on now, Mary. You said yourself that we need more nurses, don't we?
Yeah, and what about your friend from work? She's from Nigeria, isn't she?
Yeah, well, that's different because she's worked damned hard for it, more than he's done. And people like me are just out of fashion.
What are you talking about? He's got a PhD and over 10 years senior experience. There's no shame in losing out to someone like him.
Oh, I didn't lose out. I was just ignored. And I feel invisible and belittled because I train them every week and I've done what they wanted and then look how they repay me.
Look, hang on, Mary. Look, I mean, these people bring their skills and expertise. And let's face it, you've said yourself how short-staffed you've been on your ward since Brexit. We need these people to fill these jobs.
Well, actually, there are loads of us who agree that immigration isn't just about taking our jobs. It's about changing the face of the country. And they are replacing us. And I've listened to the podcasts and I've seen the proof on YouTube. And this is all being hidden from us.
Who's us, Mum?
Yeah, my friends online.
Who are these friends of yours? Or do you believe everything you read online? Or don't you realise it could be someone using a fake profile, even a bot?
These are honest people, Liam. They are patriots. And we just want what's best for the country. And I think I know who I would rather trust. Because we are just concerned about all these people coming in. And you can't trust the mainstream media because we know who owns it and the elites, they have an agenda.
All right, so now it's the BBC's fault, is it? Come on, Mary.
Mum, listen. Journalists fact check. The Press Association has a set of regulations on truth and accuracy. They have lawyers. There were even laws to ensure some accuracy. They get sued if they publish fake news.
No, because it's the elites who have the lawyers and they've got it all sewn up to keep us quiet.
But these websites you go on, who are these people? There's no fact-checking, no accountability, no regulation. Anyone can say anything and you just swallow it whole. Don't you think you should check to see if some of what they say is true?
I don't have time for checking stuff, Liam.
If you've got time to read this stuff online, you've got time to see if it's true or not.
Yeah, my friends show me the truth.
Yeah, but have you ever actually met any of them?
Yeah, we chat online, and they have done their research, and that's why we know the truth.
Oh, truth. These people wouldn't know the truth if it smacked them in the face.
There are too many immigrants.
What about Amal? That would make my wife and child immigrants too.
I love Amal. She's great, and you know that. And that is different because she's family.
Well, that's good to know. What are you actually saying, Mum?
I just think there's something bigger going on. And it's called the Great Replacement, and they're bringing people in from alien cultures, and they have no history or connections with this country, and it's scary.
Oh, come on now, Mary. Can you hear what you're saying? I mean...
So you're okay with me and Amal moving back to the UK from Kosovo to start a family? I mean, according to you and your mates online, we shouldn't be allowed to come back at all.
I told you that's different.
I don't understand how you can prefer to listen to people you've never met before rather than your own family. If you go on like this, we might not see our grandchildren grow up. Do you really think you can trust everything you read online?
Okay, there we go. There, so that's, thank you very much. That's the family tea. I hope it had an emotional impact on you the way that it always does on me. I always find myself welling up a little bit because it's a family tragedy playing out in real time. So thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to discuss with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I think we will get over with the presentations before we move to questions, if that's okay, since we have 3 more presentations. So I will ask kindly Professor Mata to perhaps take the note of the question, if that's okay. So I guess next is Line, then Casey, then Simon. Line, the floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Danny. Thank
But
you,
I
Danny.
just want to note, sorry, in beginning, to thank our colleagues. This webinar has been organized by KCSS and Inclusive Europe. So we have our colleagues Emilia and Clea with us who did a lot of the work in putting this together, and I just want to thank them as well. Lina, the floor is yours.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
You can see the screen? Great.
Yes,
I can't
it's
see
like
I can't see any of you,
share,
so yeah. All right. I can't see any of you, so Danny, speak up if there's something that I need to pause to react to.
Oh, okay,
all
I'll
right.
keep an eye. All right, thank you.
So what I plan to present is a little bit more about the theoretical framework that we've been using to identify the type of online community that Mary from our family video here, family T video, might be caught up in on social media. And we've developed this framework that we call spaces of hybridized prefatory extremism, or in short, just hype spaces on social media for understanding how some of these processes of online radicalization takes place. Now, this idea of focusing on hybridized extremism comes out of theoretical debates and conceptual debates within the field of extremist studies and with practitioners as well. A threat assessment report from the Danish intelligence services focuses on hybridization as a process in which the mixing of different ideologies, worldviews, or communities leads to the creation of new extremist narratives and modus operandi among individuals, groups, or communities. We also see the same discussions going on in the UK, where the UK counterterrorism talks about a trend towards mixed, unstable, and unclear motivations, as people that are behind violent attacks seems motivated by a range of ideological positions that are not as fixed as they would have been previously. The FBI talks about salad-bar extremism. Others mention fused extremism, fringe fluidity, cross-ideological mobilization, and composite violent extremism. So this is very much an area of research that is conceptually up for debate, and we wanted to make our contribution because one of the things that came up in the research again and again is that everyone recognizes that there is a social media component here, that social media plays a distinct role in the ways in which hybridization comes across. And we wanted to take that seriously to say, then what is it that happens when these discussions, these ideological positions becomes blurred on social media? Now, in the term hype, we have the word prefatory, and that is to say that these spaces we understand to be not extremist yet, although some of them certainly has this sort of their in and out of extremist rhetoric and ideologies, but they are more exploratory and experimental. They're skeptical, but they're not necessarily leaning towards extremism or violent just yet. So this might be one of these online spaces or one of these rabbit holes, to put it in a different word, that Mary might be caught up on online. So one of our main arguments is that hybridization is not just a question of a fragmented display of ideology or what we might label content hybridity, but it's also a question of a technological hybridity, an aesthetic hybridity, and the hybridity of digital practices. So it is sort of social media contingent that this type of trend is so prevalent in our online sphere at the moment. In our work, we focus on particular on three aspects of hype spaces. We focus on actors. These might be celebrities or influencers that are promoting or mainstreaming hype narratives in their own content. We focus on practices where people in communities are co-creating narratives by using current events, urban legends, or popular culture. And we focus on the type of content, for example, mimetic content, in which this type of content is spread. So in the following, I just want to give some brief introductions to some of the analysis that we've done in the Smidge project so far, so that you get sort of a sense about how we are working with this theoretical framework in terms of the analysis that we are conducting. For hype actors, we did pick up on the case of Elon Musk, because he represents, he is in one way he's a very sort of extreme case. He's a special case because he has his own platform. He governs the algorithm on X. He's also the richest man in the world, so he has a lot of power and influence that way. He's, up until at least recently, had a lot of political power in the US. And he also has that special condition that he has more than 200 million followers on X. And even if we consider some of them, at least, maybe even millions of them, to be bots or non-active profiles, that is still an audience that very, very few, if any, media companies can compete with. So he has a huge platform from which to speak, and everything he does and says is registered not only with users on social media, but by mainstream media as well, and becomes agenda setting for news stories. So the screenshots here demonstrate the 5 most views posts by Elon Musk in the time period where we were collecting data. And one of the things that we can see here is that it is different types of content. So a lot of it is political, but it's concerned with different political topics. The woman in the middle is a boxer from the Olympics, and there was this whole debate about whether or not she was actually female, and he entered into that sort of identity discussion there. There's also, of course, his support for MAGA and Donald Trump. And then we see him engaging with popular culture, with movies. He makes a lot of memes. He posts memes in which he is the main character, as is the case with the Doge meme, which seems to be an AI-generated meme. He has quite a few of them where he is the main character of the meme. So we took a look at the accounts that Elon Musk were mainly engaging with. And the top 10 accounts shows an interesting context, because these accounts are both mainly far-right accounts, but there are also accounts that are extremely busy in spreading conspiracy theories online. So a lot of the information that Elon Musk gets from his platform X, he gets from accounts like these, and the engagement that he has with them, replying to them, liking tweets, retweeting them, and so on. The main account, End Wokeness, is a big account with almost 4 million followers that is concerned with an anti-liberal, anti-woke agenda, and that also posts a lot of conspiracy theories. If we look at that account specifically, the End Wokeness account, we can see some of the main topics that comes up. It's about government and bureaucracy. It's about media bias and misinformation. It's about identity issues and LGBT issues. It's about race and ethnicity, and it's about Donald Trump. So here we can see the content hybridization in a single platform or in a single profile like End Wokeness that is moving across this spectrum of different ideologies and different areas of interest in what is posted. So as I mentioned, Elon Musk has sort of made himself into a meme. Here's another way in which he uses popular culture and references to films and references to popular culture to position himself as either a hero or even a superhero, or sometimes as a villain in a science fiction setting, or in sort of an ancient Rome setting, as someone who is out to fight for his ideological beliefs through the means of these popular culture references. He's famously also recently talked about himself in a way where he said the sentence, "I am become meme," which is perhaps the most boomer sentence ever spoken. Now, finally, Musk is not contained to being engaged in US politics, and we found it interesting that he has a focus on Europe as well. And one of the things that comes up when he is focusing on British or European politics is this addressing of a civil war that's brewing, or a civil war that's coming, and that's something that keeps coming up for him as a topic and theme. Now, as we move on to hype practices, one particular practice came out in the empirical data that we collected, and we've labeled this particular practice forensic play as something that is very dominant in these conspiracy theory communities. The concept of forensic play is a concept that we've developed from a concept Mittel coined in 2009 that's called forensic fandom, and it comes out of a fan studies tradition. And Mittel focuses on how fan communities, television audiences are encouraging collaborative research and analysis and interpretation. So he's talking about TV series like Lost or Star Trek, where people are engaging in detailed analysis and picking apart frame by frame the series, and then coming up with theories and conclusions based on that. But as we see it, that is a tendency that has far broader implications when we look at it today. So we've broadened this concept to not only include fan communities, but to talk about forensic play as a practice that happens in everything from open source intelligence to true crime communities or true crime fandoms, and also very dominantly in conspiracy theory communities. So this is the screenshots here are from an example where a well-known Danish actor posted a Swiss roll on his personal Instagram, and then audiences used that image to deduce that he was actually signaling a community of pedophiles, and so this actor must also be a satanic pedophile engaged in grooming Danish children through his acting in a children's program. And they're then pointing to other places in which the spiral motif is repeated in culture as evidence of an elaborate pedophile ring across production of diapers, ice cream, anything else. Anywhere you can see the spiral. But it's this sort of forensic diving into social media content, diving into current events, and using that content as a type of clue to a mystery that needs to be solved collaboratively. So we see that across a number of cases. This is a conspiracy theory about Tom Hanks being part of a pedophile elite in the US as part of the QAnon conspiracy theory. And one of the comments, along with many, many comments to this video on YouTube, are sort of deciphering clues that they can see in the video. In this case, the poster posts that look closely at the glass of water. The water is level in the glass, yes, yet on edge is sitting on the plate, meaning the table is very tilted, like on board a ship, like a Navy ship, like maybe he was being held. So here is the idea that Tom Hanks has already been captured for his crimes against humanity, and he's sitting on a military ship, and that's where he's conducting his interview with Stephen Colbert. Other people suggest that he's actually a deep fake in this interview, that he's already been executed at Gitmo. So there's all of these speculations that come out of this video. Here's just another example of this forensic play trend. This is from the Kate Middleton conspiracy theory that took up a lot of space in particular on X and TikTok last spring. After she had abdominal surgery and she was out of the public eye for a bit. then she came out with this video that you can see pictured in these examples, announcing her cancer treatment and her cancer diagnosis. And then people were picking apart this video, zooming in on little details, trying to make conclusions about whether or not it was fake or if it was real, what would be the motives for it being fake. And there are all of these sorts of analysis and this sort of forensic participation that goes on in these types of communities. And in this way, people are collaboratively building these narratives, these conspiracy theories that grow out of these communities. Now, in a different study, we looked at conspiracy theory content on YouTube, and we made a collection of 30 YouTube channels and the 1,100 videos that were posted by these 30 channels. And one of the things that we could see is that in terms of engagement patterns, it was clear that while content that were specifically meant to be entertaining were far more popular, they got a lot of views. Content about conspiracism and corruption didn't get as many views, but there was much more of it. The production of that was far more frequent, and the video length of these videos was also far higher. So the average video that was presenting entertainment was 2.9 minutes, whereas the content spreading conspiracy theories had an average of 56 minutes per video, which is quite a high number. So there's a lot of content being produced in this field. Let's see if I can see the next one. Now, also, one of the things that we can see in this data is that the videos about conspiracism and corruption are also the videos that generates the most comments. So it's quite popular material as well. So even if it wasn't getting the most views, it's still getting the most engagement in the comments. Another trend that emerged in terms of the hype practices is that users in these channels were using the genre codes from established news media to perform a sort of authoritative way of disseminating information about conspiracy theories. We can see that very clearly in these two images, that it's positioning itself as if it was real news, as if it had the authority of mainstream media news. Finally, in terms of hype content, we took a look at Instagram, and one of the things that became clear quite quickly was that content spreading conspiracy theories tended to not focus on one conspiracy theory. Rather, a particular image posted under a hashtag for a specific conspiracy theory was followed by a cluster of hashtags addressing a bunch of other conspiracy theories and ideological positions. So here we can see two different examples of that, one at the top and one at the bottom. And the one at top is concerned with the Great Reset, the deep state, but then there's something about Hunter Biden's laptop. There's something about digital currency, Robert Kennedy Jr. There's something about booster shots. And there are all of these, the Great Awakening, so there are all of these different themes that comes into it. And similarly, on the bottom, we are looking at flat Earth being mixed with New World Order, Illuminati, adrenochrome, and so on. So there's a hybridity in the way that people are spreading this content, in the sense that these ideologies and these different positions and narratives comes together in these hashtag clusters. We took a look at 6 specific hashtags here. You can see them marked in gray. And then we saw how they connected to other hashtags in their in a network analysis. This is the top 50 hashtags in the network. And it's interesting to see how these conspiracy hashtags often occurs alongside more mainstream hashtags such as hashtag life hack, hashtag cute, hashtag weekend, hashtag picture of the day, hashtag YouTuber, and so on. So all of this content is not exclusively for a community of hardcore conspiracy theories, but it is being spread mainstream on social media through its connection to all of these more mainstream hashtags. And here we just have an image of the hashtag network between these conspiracy theories, and we can see all of these mainstream hashtags emerge in this data as well. Now, finally, we've developed a method for profiling hype content by using these spider web visualizations, so that we are able to take content from social media profiles and plot into these spider webs to see what the types of narratives and how they are using different types of aesthetics and genres and so on in the content that is spreading. In terms of future research or challenges that we've come across so far that will need further exploration, is that one of the things that we come across is that our access to data is a challenge because of platform ownership and lack of platform regulation. So in reality, we're not really allowed to go in and investigate data, especially collect data in a data scraping fashion from platforms like Facebook and X. Which would be really useful and necessary, I think, for understanding these problems going forward. But there are some limitations that makes it difficult as researchers to navigate that type of content. There are also challenges related to the security of the researcher, because we are putting ourselves sort of in the line of shooting for these conspiracy theories when we are publishing work about them, but also when we are collecting their data and using that data for public dissemination. And then there are challenges in the changes of digital infrastructure. So the algorithmic infrastructure, which is often not disclosed to researchers. So we can't really know the exact algorithm that goes into a platform to understand the consequences of how it distributes content. And the same thing goes for these new AI technologies that take up so much space in our media use now. And finally, all of this shapes the extremist cultures and have contributed to this trend of hybridization, but we also need to look at the ongoing impact of digital practices and technologies and aesthetics on these extremist expressions and mobilizations on social media. Thank you so much. That was it from the Smidge project.
Thank you, Line. So with Sarah and Line, we completed the lessons learned, or the work we are doing from Smidge project. And now it's my pleasure to invite our colleagues from our sister projects, starting with Professor Mahendran or Casey with OppAttune project. So Casey, I have your presentation. Do you want to try to share it yourself, or do you want me to share it?
I'll take a shot at sharing it and let's see how we get on.
Okay. Otherwise, I downloaded it and it's ready if it's
okay. Cheers, thank you.
All right. Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
I hope you can see it okay in the show form.
Yeah.
Thank you so great. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for the invitation. It's been very interesting to listen to colleagues in Smidge set out their findings so far. I mean, it really does really connect to the work that we're doing within OppAttune. And for colleagues in the room, Smidge, Arenas and OppAttune were all funded on the very same call about tracking and understanding the evolution of extreme political narratives, hence the emphasis on narratives. Doesn't often happen with the Commission. That you get such a nice emphasis on narratives and this kind of discursive world that we're all living in. So it was great that they'd chosen to allocate the funding to these issues. What I want to talk to you about today then is to kind of build really on what Sarah and Lina were saying about what's going on in social media and of course in people's homes. And just look a little bit more deeper into the sort of psychological drivers of this sort of activity. We've got two, it can get dense, my presentations. So just to keep it very straightforward, there are two things I would hope that you would take away from this talk, this 10-minute talk. And that is to understand the idea of everyday extremism, which is one of our key concepts, and then to propose the idea of political attunement as a possible way to dial down that kind of oppositional extremism. So there's the consortium there. That's actually not everybody in that picture. I mean, it's we're now over 50 colleagues across 17 partners. So I want to just take you really into an interactive environment so you can sort of have a sense of the way that we're working. Can I ask you, have you seen hostile memes, building a little bit on what Lena was just saying, using this image in the last 72 hours? If you have, just put a thumbs up on, and I'll see it on the screen, hopefully. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, so I can see that people are saying that they have seen this image in the last 72 hours. I've also seen it, didn't go looking for it. It came to me in my social media feeds. It was nearly always contrasted with something a little bit like this. I'm not going to show it in full opacity because it is real, it's somebody's life. But it was nearly always a distressing image which was contrasted, usually with one above the other. You can't do it on PowerPoint. We should ask PowerPoint to design a new slide. You really need it to be one above the other because you're contrasting, somebody who thinks they've been kidnapped with someone who's really been kidnapped, as the sharers would explain to you. What's interesting, I think, about this is this use of oppositional logic. So that's where OppAttune came from, was this idea that extremism relies on an oppositional logic, and us, them, a civil war, as a certain person might want to call it. So it relies on that and it builds on it. So what we want, our contribution, I think, to this challenge is to say that this polarization, this us versus them logic that is at the heart of both populism and its expressions in the form of radicalisation and extremism, is this idea that there are these contested worlds where, in order to sustain my world, I must annihilate your world, hence the idea of a civil war. What we do, this is actually just directly from the pitch that we made to the funders. We have two funders, the Innovate UK, and then we have Horizon Europe also funding. Oppositional worldviews, narratives, and dissensus within public debate are all vital to functioning democracy. I mean, that was our opening line, which is the answer is not to reduce opposition. However, destructive polarization of oppositional us-them logic is at the core of the rise of extreme narratives. So what are you going to do? You need to keep opposition, but it's also the basis of extremism. Disruptive actors, as has just been illustrated in the talks ahead of this one, polarize oppositional logic using disinformation, emotions, hot cognitions. You would have felt it earlier on. Our emotions are up today. Conspiracy theories, mistrust to create new forms of direct action. And really one of the key messages I wanted to really send across to the funders and then build into this work was this direct action is seen as direct democracy. So Lena was talking about the modality is often this kind of forensic investigative, but they're often investigating on behalf of democracy. This is the direct democracy, rather than, you can't really go through your representatives in representative democracy anymore. You do it directly because you've got the means to. This direct action cultivates as unlikely coalitions, and that builds just absolutely the same as composite ideological extremism, creating attractive alternative online-offline worlds which spread extreme narratives into the mainstream via deep-rooted sociological and historical pathways. And you can sort of, the family tea that Sarah presented, it really kind of illustrated that sort of deep sociological, mums are put in their place kind of thing by dad and the son. Yeah. So here's the challenge for us. What we're proposing in our project is that extremism is something we're all doing. We're all doing it. And Sarah sort of said that people people may not subscribe to what they see, but they share it all the same. And that's why I ended up seeing, you know, Greta smiling at an IDF sandwiches, because so many people were sharing it with the October 7th image, seemingly almost mindlessly, or sometimes doing it under the guise of humor. You know, this person thinks she's being kidnapped. So the idea was you were putting Greta in her place. So we're all doing it, and we're just working on a paper just now, which Anthony's taking the lead on, which is everyday extremism is a universal capacity. We've all got the capacity to do it. Put us in a certain situation where we feel some sense that their world is taking over our world, and we may slowly begin to start sharing memes, telling stories, challenging people, closing people down, just tuning out when we hear something that we just simply don't think we agree with. So in that sense, it's in the everyday. It's anti-dialogical because it doesn't allow for dialogue and the difference in worldviews. It's a person's endpoint. This is very much Anthony's work. A person's endpoint, this last one, should be defined within the context of their starting point. And I think there is an element of meeting people where they actually are at. This reference is coming out. We just are working on it now. So we've also, if you want to, you know, we'll share it obviously with colleagues in the room going forward. If you want to get a handle on what we're doing now, then we've done a couple of films with the BBC with Sarah McDermott in the lead. They're open access. If you go by an iPlayer, you'll get locked out if you're not outside of the UK. But if you go through the OU, it's open access because we have that arrangement with the BBC, so anyone can see them. And then we've also got a special issue, which again the psychologist very kindly made open access, completely open access, all articles. And that John, who's the editor, came to me with the same thing that everyone has come to me since I started working on the public's relationship with the European Union, which is to say, people are divided. How can we bring them back together? So that was the UK post-Brexit. People are divided. How can we bring them back together? And John came to me with this special issue request and said, you know, Casey, John's the editor, Casey, what can psychologists do to help to bring people back together? And I've said consistently, really, the answer is not to bring people back together. This is politics. It's real. It's not a board meeting where you're trying to build a working consensus. It's politics. It is oppositional. Politics is oppositional. We just got to handle oppositional play. So because we wouldn't want a situation where we're all voting for the same party. So politics in a democratic process, it means handling the oppositional. So the narratives, we think that, and you know, clearly the funders do as well, that narratives are the root, just as Sarah was saying, the storytelling. It's about, you know, what people say, who controls the narrative, or how can you divert the narrative? And I think that that's the basis of intervention in the work that we're doing. So just another public, I'll just jump over these because I think they're just slightly too dense for today. But I think the key thing is that limiting everyday extremism involves understanding that political memory is contested. And although it's not one of our case studies, actually, Israel, Palestine, but of course it's coming in to Europe and into our case studies. Our case studies are vaccination, climate change, integration, protectionism, and then we have what we call silent narratives, because it's important to leave that space for what's just not being talked about. So what I want to propose then, and what I want to work towards, is this idea that if you've got oppositional play, you've got really, I would say, a game. So rather than saying contested, you could, and that's the proposal I make, go from contested to contest. If you go from contested to contest, then you've now got rules, rule of law, winners and losers, admittedly, but you do get to play again if you lose, and you may go up the rankings even though you've lost. So this is this idea of political attunement, and this is what we're working on now. When I proposed it in the proposal, there wasn't a great deal of literature on it, but actually, you know, and as always happens, a great thing about having a scholarly life is once you've got the time to really look into it, there is a lot actually on attunement. So there is, you know, just to touch on some of these, there's a listening attunement that's been written about within Black gaze studies. There's vitality attunement within the world of democracy studies. The one I knew about already was affective attunement, the most famous example being parent and child tend to move with each other, often without any words at all. They'll move with each other. Social resonance is there. And then this is a very creative one, actually, panesthetic attunement. So where do we position ourselves? Well, what we're talking about does build on those other forms of attunement. So we're all, obviously we're online, so it won't work. But if we were all, you can all imagine that we're in a sort of seminar room. If I walk to the window while I'm talking, it will cause you to react slightly. So we have this sense that we attune to the other as human beings. Equally, I think attunement is there when you're asked a question in a conference. Let's stay with the seminar idea. So somebody asks a question of someone. So if I ask a question of Danny, then he has a process that he engages in before he answers, which is to attune to the question before he formulates a response. So I want to propose that political attunement is a strategic game. I'm using tennis, whether you have that as lawn tennis or table tennis, but I'm using tennis in this and have proposed it to the consortium. I must be honest, at least 35% of the consortium don't buy it. They don't like it. They don't like tennis. They feel it's risky, as because it creates winners and losers. I think that I use a lot of OppAttune, and I think the idea is, I think what we've got, one of the difficulties we've got in this area is this conflation between the civil and the political. And really, I use OppAttune because OppAttune's logic is don't treat others as you would want to be treated. That's the Kantian version. But treat others as they would want to be treated. Treat others as they want to be treated is a kind of rejection of the idea that we're all the same. So we're developing the model now. We've pretty much finished it now, and this is going to involve certain assumptions about attuning to the other, not assuming that you know what they're already on, and that there is a moral dimension to this, because to fail to do that is ultimately to dehumanize the other. Yeah. So this is just really nice creative stuff, actually, that you can have a look at. I can sense that I've just got a couple of minutes left. So if you know that you like this kind of imagination and fabulation style approach, these guys, Tina Kempt and then Saadia Hartman, you can get nearly all of their stuff on YouTube now. Really, they take images, usually quite often the Black gaze, of a period of history which relates to emancipation, post-slavery, but all that's left is an image, just an image of a woman walking down the street, and you just kind of don't know her story. So what Saadia Hartman in this beautiful book did is took all those images and created a possible story for this person. She used she's a historian, so she used loads of archival data to really ground it in what was possible. But it told this story of these lives of these women who had been freed from slavery, but there were no rules really as to how they were supposed to navigate life post-slavery. Let's stick with the attunement model then. So these are all the different work packages. So work package 5 is the ethnographic one. That's the deep-rooted sociological one and stuff. Work package 2 is the rights and regulations. They've done a really interesting interactive map, which uses 16 case studies available online already. We're work package 6 in psychology. That's I'll present a little bit more on that. Work package 3 is the protectionists, and we call them the coaches, if you like. They're continually advising the other. And then the crowd is work package 4, and that kind of relates, I think, to Smidge the most, is the crowd, really, which is these influences on the players. And then the mood, the Mexican wave mood, that will undoubtedly affect the players' capacity to play. So this is what we're using as a metaphor, because obviously when you're working across lots of different countries in Europe, you need something that is straightforward enough to make sense to everyone. And the idea is that whatever happens in the game of tennis, you don't jump over the net to attack the other person. So this idea that it gives us a sort of a framework that stays within the rule of law is, I think, a key. And it's also, some people have said, yeah, but haven't you got to get people to the court in the first place to recognize the legitimacy of the court? And I think that what we're saying is we're already on that court. We're already there. And we may be put in situations where we're players. We may be put in situations all the time where we're part of the crowd, and we can make a decision about how we react in that crowd. So Evangelia, who's here today, Verguli, who's one of our PhD students, has made a set of films with Damn Fine Media, where each of these 5 people try to convince you to vote for them. So it's really complementary, actually, to the Family Tea film. Similar, it's about 3 minutes. They're shorter, but they are also doing the immigration story as well. So they're playing with the potential extremism that's wrapping around immigration rhetoric. So they're very complementary, and we should think of ways of taking them forward. Absolutely. I find something that's so fascinating about this, which Lena kind of spoke to, which is there's certain genres that imbue authority. So if you can see the person in the middle, people often gravitate towards that person because he looks like he's in charge. Other people gravitate towards the first woman and the young man because they're both on the street. Even though they're actually polar opposites in what they're saying, they're trying to decide who to vote for between those two. Evangelia speaks to this better than I do, and she'll be sort of speaking later on this year to this work. The other thing that we're releasing is, this is my last slide, guys, is an interactive. So I work at the Open University. We do everything in this interactive way. So it's very similar to a MOOC in a way. These are early versions, by the way. It's just finishing now, and we'll release it in September. So we'll get in touch with you all in September to promote this. And what you can do in the interactive, which will be available online, is you can get the measure of your own capacity for extremism and the type of democratic actor you are. So we've got these the scale that was developed by our colleagues in Malta, Gordon and Rebecca. So that's the everyday extremism scale. We can't use all of it, it's like too big, but we've used some of the everyday extremism scale so you can get a measure of how extreme you are and your sort of behavioral intentions and what you think is acceptable within a sort of liberal democratic environment. How far do you go to win in terms of your worldview? And then you can get an account of what type of democratic actor you are, and then we show you how to attune to someone who might be a different type of actor. And that's pretty much us at this stage. So thank you so much.
This was very good presentation. Thank you, Casey. I think a lot to take from Sarah, Lena, and Casey from their presentations, but we have now the 4th and last presentation from our colleague from the Arenas project, Professor Maata from University of Helsinki, or Simo, if you can hear us. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Now, as we are moving to, thank you. Yes, we can hear you. I'll just a quick note, technical note to colleagues in order to save time and use time rationally. As the allocated time for the webinar is coming to an end, I want to encourage all of you to pose your questions in the chat or in the question and answer section that I opened, and invite colleagues to engage and provide as many answers as they could. And with that, I want to give the floor to Professor Maata for his presentation. Thank you,
Professor. Very much. So
Do you want to share your presentation?
Yeah, I
or?
will try to. Oh, it doesn't.
Okay.
Maybe you can do it. Do you have the eight slide version?
I do have the 8-slide version.
Yes, maybe you can do it because there seems to be a problem here.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Danny.
Yes, absolutely. This is the one, right?
I don't. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
it.
I'll take a time until. Okay.
So if we go to the first slide, please.
Yeah. Do you want?
I don't see the first slide.
Yeah. Do you see now?
That's not the first slide.
Maybe it takes time until it.
Okay, now I see the first slide. Thank you very much, Danny.
Yeah, okay. So, it's just gonna take time, I think, because of the internet connection.
I understand. I'll try to be patient.
All right.
Thank you very much for inviting me to present the awareness project here. It has been very exciting to hear the other presentations. I have learned a lot. Katalin Miklosi, who is a specialist, a political historian specializing in Central and Eastern Europe, was supposed to be here, but she had something else, so she asked me to do it for her. And I have to say that I'm not a work package leader in this project, and I had been away for a long time for leave of absence, but I tried to do my best. I think it's going to be a little bit bureaucratic, but and I tried to summarize it a little bit because I realized that we don't have a lot of time. So can I have the next slide, please, Danny?
Is it changing?
I don't see it yet, but I will wait.
Yes.
So what I will present mostly is the plans and the goals we have rather than the results, because as I said, I have been on a leave of absence, so I'm not aware of all the outcomes that we already have. So the general objective of this project is to characterize, measure, and understand the role of extremist narratives in discourses that have an impact on the political and social spheres, but also on the stakeholders themselves. I should say that the project actually was born from long-standing cooperation among Francophone discourse studies scholars. I was part of that group also, the group DREN. So that's how we started to build this project. And University Cergy Paris is the leader. And of course, at some point, we had to extend the network. So now we have an interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary network. But I'm one of those discourse analysis people originally. Can I have the next slide, please? I really tried to summarize because I realized we don't have that much time. And I don't have exciting videos like my colleagues had. Okay, so here you can see the objectives, like the specific objectives of the project. So we want to identify, analyze, and characterize extremist narratives that are linked to science, nation, and gender. And we will talk about a little bit more. I will talk a little bit more about these three topics shortly. So that's work package 2. Then work package 3, in which I'm active also, and I'm one of the task leaders. Most people in this work package are actually historians. We also have sociologists, and we have legal scholars. So it's really exciting to be the only linguist basically here and learn from other scholars. So we try to understand the roots of extremist narratives, the national specificities, and monitor their circulation. Circulation is really a key concept here. And I was glad to see that the colleagues from other projects, from the sister projects, have also that concept, sometimes with a different name. I think Lina mentioned traveling. So I wrote down circulation, traveling immediately when I heard that. So then we have work package 4, which tries to explain the influence of extremist narratives on the perceptions of people and their actions. So here, some of the actions involve, for example, young people, school children, and so on. In WP5, the colleagues try to identify, test, and evaluate the resistance strategies of social actors. So this is very much related also to the work in the other projects. And finally, provide policy recommendations for the prevention of extremist narratives. May I have the next slide, please, Danny?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, I'll wait for a while.
Sorry about
Yeah,
this. I think.
Well, we are all in different parts of Europe. Okay, well, I think this is a little bit too dense. So what it tries to explain is the expected results. So maybe we can just move on to the next one. As I said, this is very bureaucratic. So perhaps it's better to just move on. So here you can see the partners. So I'm from the University of Helsinki in Finland, and our team also include Katalin Miklosi, whom I already mentioned, and also sociologist Gwenal Beauvoir. We have an NGO from Latvia. We have universities from different countries in Europe, as you can see, and also other partners, NGOs, and so on. So maybe we could move on to the next slide, please. Okay, nation, science, and gender. These are really the three main thematic areas here, and we think that they are all linked. Of course, nation probably is the common denominator for all of these. So these three themes have been chosen to allow a precise study of specific cases, which are representative of three major current poles of debate. So science, which is questioned by multiple instances in context such as climate change, vaccines, and possible solutions in the context of a pandemic. Nation crystallizes a large number of tensions, whether regional or national, with the question of identities, communities, racism, European or even international, institutional or political consequences such as Brexit, Euroscepticism, or attitudes towards refugees. Then gender gives rise to a considerable amount of hate speech discrimination, also being integrated into legislative and political debates on a number of social issues. So for example, in WP3, we have been looking into parliamentary debates in 5 European countries in the Parliament database. And in Finland, for example, we chose with my colleague Gwenal Beauvoir to focus on the issue of trans rights and the new Trans Act that passed here in Finland 2 years ago. So we are looking at the circulation of extremist narratives in different levels between political parties, between traditional and new media, in time also, between cultures, between languages, and so on. Can I have the following slide, please? Next slide, please, Danny. Okay, this is very complex. As you can see, it looks wonderful. But so here you have the different WPs that I already more or less presented. So while waiting for the slide to change, you can look at the picture, but I suggest we move on to the next slide. So I was not entirely sure what was expected from me in this webinar, and although all the instructions were very, very clear, but this was entirely my fault. So I thought I would just share some of the reflections I have about these themes right now. As I mentioned before, I am very much interested in the concept of circulation of extremist narratives. Of course, this is related to many concepts that have been studied in discourse studies very widely, like intertextuality, interdiscursivity, and so on. Bachtin was mentioned here by Casey, and Bachtin's ideas about language are very much about circulation too. So as I mentioned before, circulation on very different levels in time between different eras, between different political parties, radical parties, traditional parties, between different discourses and ideologies, between different media, including traditional and new media, and between cultures and languages. Then secondly, the question that I'm very much interested is how and by whom and where are extremist narratives defined, and what are the consequences of this? This is something that my colleague Katalin Miklosi has studied a lot, because in what is conceived as extremist in Western Europe, for example, is often considered as mainstream in Hungary, which is one of the core geographical areas of expertise of my colleague Katalin. And the related question here, I think you may think that this is a very naive question, but I think it's a key question when we think about fighting these narratives, because often we get the feeling that the other side has very simple answers and they work, and we don't have those answers. How do we know that we are right? I don't have an answer to this. And then finally, to what extent is all this new? This was also touched upon in the previous presentations. To what extent can we draw parallels between today and the past? To what extent should we find new tools, new solutions, new perspectives? I think, as a linguist and a discourse analyst, that the narratological rhetoric and linguistic tools are pretty much the same as they have been for a very, very long time. What has changed is the circulation mechanism, the algorithm that Line talked about. I think it was Line that mentioned that as a challenge. We don't know how the algorithm works. And this has also, this has this is directly related to the mechanisms of circulation. We don't know exactly how it works. And this also has an impact on the dynamics of language and power. And this is the end of my presentation. I'm looking forward for the discussion. I hope it was helpful for you. And thank you, Dani, for kindly sharing the slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simo, for your presentation. And we have 1 minute left in our allocated time. I don't know if there was any engagement. I couldn't check while I was sharing the slide, but I think we learned a lot from this webinar, from the 3 projects that are focusing on violent extremism narratives or extremist narratives. And so if anyone has what we can call a burning question from the audience, I would like to invite, if the colleagues are okay, to stay maybe 5-10 minutes more. If not, I wanted, okay, we have 15 minutes left. Yes, sorry. Okay. So if not, I wanted to ask a question. My understanding was it was going to end at 12:30, so I was wrong, sorry. My question to start the conversation is, the word polarization was mentioned, I think, and comes across all of our work. Now, I was in a seminar where I kind of presented polarization as something of a concern. And someone reacted that, polarization is good. Without polarization, we don't have ability to challenge the society or the government or those indecisions. So we tend to view polarization as potentially detrimental to social cohesion, but at the same time, from another perspective, polarization is very much key to a democratic, or as you said, direct democracy or a democratic functioning of society. How do you see this tension? For instance, just as an explanation right now, the colleague who raised this was from Serbia, where you have a lot of protests going on. And so from his perspective, in this case, polarization was good. The idea that the society is divided in how they see the situation in the country and so forth. I don't know if anyone wants to start with this. Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to speak to a few sentences to it. But Lena, did you want to comment first?
Go ahead, Casey. Go ahead. I'll follow up.
From I think this is politics, really, and I think the difficulty, and it's the difficulty the European Union faces as well, and it is this kind of conflation of the social, the civil, and the political. So the person who poses this question to you, Danny, is someone who is privileging the political, aren't they? They're saying, look, come on, how do we get things done if we don't have a means by which shaking things up? And if every time we shake things up, everyone calls it polarization, what kind of democracy is that? There's a kind of... So I would support your interlocutor in that sense. But there's a difference between polarization and the opposition. If you're marching for change as they are doing in Serbia, I don't think that's evidence of polarization. I think that's evidence of dissensus, which is a vital component of democracy. And what I would call polarization, which I want to reserve as being problematic, because it requires intervention from people who would want to make sure that everybody is safe on the streets, if you like. So I want to keep polarization as being problematic because it means you've moved to extremes. So when it hits the extreme, then you've got polarization. If you bring it in a little bit, and you've got dissensus, then we've got a vital part of democracy. That's where I'd take it.
And I think, thank you for that, Casey. And because I appreciated both of your presentation, Simon and Casey as well. And Casey, you pointed to this notion that we are all different and we shouldn't try to assume that we are all the same. And I really appreciated that. In terms of the findings in our own research, I think one of the things that keeps coming up in the case studies that we're making is that sort of general critique of a phenomenon or a person or an organization is not typically the problem. The problem arises when that critique is wrapped in a conspiracy theory, because in the conspiracy theory lies the image of an enemy that is that represents an urgent crisis that needs to be solved, and often that solution is violent. And so that brings with it harassment, online harassment, vitriol, hate speech, and all of these things, violent threats, and even physical violence as well, as we saw in the protest after the Southport killing in the UK. So for me, at least, and I don't know how to define polarization because that's not a part issue, a sort of a central issue to what we're looking at theoretically. But it's when difference of opinion is then wrapped in conspiracy theories. That's when we see the real problems. Not only is it difficult to then have a democratic discussion and talk about things, but it's because reality is warped in these situations. But that is also what brings about these the support or legitimacy of violence, the use of violence, for example. So, or these images of enemies that represents an urgent crisis that needs to be solved. And I think that's a problem for democracy, I think.
Okay. Now we have a question from colleague. I will
We don't hear you anymore, Danny.
I think Danny froze.
Yeah, my connection's been very odd as well. I've just been thrown out of this meeting at least 6 times. I don't know what's going on.
See if Danny comes back. There is a question in the chat. I don't know if the person who raised the question would like to ask it themselves.
And so Theophilus, please go ahead. Feel free to ask the question. Oh, okay. Sorry, I cannot open the mic. It doesn't work. So I can try and read it, if that's okay. Do you think that when thinking of defining polarization, we should bear in mind that desired outcome to challenge the status quo, but propose an optimized system versus propose a collapse of the system with no prospect?
I'm sorry, the problem with my connection. Thank you, Emilia, for jumping in. Okay, I guess, yeah, sorry. Continue, please.
No, I was just reading the question, and I think now we can leave the floor to presenters to answer.
If I understand, I can't see the question actually. I mean, for some reason, is it in the chat or is it in the Q&A?
It's in the chat, yeah.
Oh, it's in the chat. There you go. Got it there. Thank you. So Theo, do you think that defining, we should bear in mind the desired outcome? Yeah, I think so. I think that's a very useful contribution, really, is to look at what the end game is, really, in the form of polarization. I mean, our concern with the work that we're doing is because we're making the claim that we're all capable of being extremists and we're all kind of being pulled into this world of often just sharing things because we think they're funny or they make us look clever on a Saturday morning kind of thing and politically smart and have a hot take on etc. So we're kind of being pulled into this world of being political. But so then where do you draw the line? And our line within OppAttune is when you communicate hostility to the other. And that is where you've gone over the line if you denigrate and dehumanize the other. So to pick up what Theo is saying, if the outcome is to challenge the status quo, but it doesn't propose annihilating the other, then to me that I don't know about defining polarization. I'd probably leave that one to political scientists, but I do think it's a really great point that you make, that let's look at what the end game is. What is the challenge that they're making? I hope I've interpreted your question correctly, Theo.
Okay. I don't know if Lina, Sarah, or Simon wants to come in on this, or I can continue with the next one. No? Okay. So another question I wanted to ask is about the fact that what we consider extremist narrative, the threshold to qualify a narrative extremist is blurring. People with extremist narratives are becoming mainstream. And so I think also Simo at the end was raising these issues of, maybe we are wrong, maybe. But the point is that sometimes decision makers, people who were on the fringe or on the margins before in the past with extremist narratives, now are the mainstream. So what does this mean for researchers when someone who is a decision maker, this is the conversation we also had in Smidge project, by the way. So when someone is a decision maker, when someone is, elected official now, or even a leader who used to be seen as someone promoting extremist narrative, now it's in mainstream. What does that mean for us as researchers or for the epistemic community in general, in terms of especially understanding, as we are asking in this webinar, where the extremist narratives are going? I don't know if who wants to start.
Can I start? Thank you. Well, I think, of course, in this call, in these projects, I think what extremist means is pretty much implicitly defined by the European Union. So we had to go with that. But at the same time, I don't think that I am not right. Don't get me wrong, Charlie. I don't think that. But I don't know how to convince, I have friends who believe in conspiracy theories. I think many of us do. And I don't know what to do. I mean, to save the friendship, sometimes it's just, I know it's kind of cowardly, but better to just say, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about these things. But I think one of the keys I mean, of course, definitions change. And it's an exciting concept because it's so blurry, the boundaries are so fuzzy. But maybe something, what Casey pointed out, the difference between polarization and dissensus. Like, what does it mean when it's polarizing? There's dehumanization, there's communication of hostility, and so on. These were all things that Casey said. Maybe the answers could be found in that sphere. I don't know.
Thank you, Sima. Anyone wants to comment on this? What are the implications for research community when what can be considered extremist narrative become mainstream or more widely accepted?
Yeah, I've
Like,
got a
what
little
is,
something I'd like to add to that. It's actually a conversation that I had with one of our partners about 6 months ago now. It was Christian Gulas. And his concerns that I think we should take seriously is that as this becomes more mainstream, then the decision makers are making policies and decisions reflecting that. Therefore, we might find that these sorts of projects are not so readily funded because it raises and highlights things that perhaps are less comfortable, that it actually goes against some of this new rhetoric coming through on mainstream. So this was a concern that actually does have some credence. You wouldn't think, oh, the Commission's not going to go down that road. But if they are worried about upsetting decision makers, politicians, the people with the money to give to something like Horizon Europe, and they don't want to upset the apple cart, then they may steer away from this type of project rather than stop doing it altogether. You know, they might not be explicit, but we may see a movement that means that these sorts of projects investigating this are less and less funded. I think that's a potential possible issue. Yeah.
anyone else or no? Okay. I think, and I don't see that we have any other questions from the colleagues who are attending online. We have someone agreeing with you. This is what's happening in Germany already. I think it's one of the reactions to this discussion. Emilia, is this the time or do we still have?
We have 1 minute left, so I was wondering if any
Yeah.
of the presenters would like to share some reflections after listening to the other colleagues' presentations, and if they can kind of observe some common challenges persisting in this field. So if you have some thoughts to share, and that would be the last
Okay,
part
and maybe
of
this can be the last, yeah, so we can go the round with all the colleagues. Maybe start in, I don't know, with Gline if you want, or Casey, and then, yeah.
I got caught up reading the comment from Evangelia in the chat. So if someone else wants to start, that would be great.
I mean, the thing that I would definitely take away from this is this challenge. Yeah, that it is a challenge, and as Lena put it, the difficulty is when the story or the position is wrapped up in a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's you know, that's a very tough. It sounds like science fiction, but it's like it's wrapped round with something that's so strong, you know, so powerful that you can't you just can't get into it. I mean, in psychology we call it self-inoculation, and there has been tons of research on self-inoculation, so we can maybe dig out that research and see if there's a way in. That would be my main takeaway, I think, is listening to colleagues, and it was great, Simo, for you to step in like that, and I can really see that there are a great deal of commonalities between the work that Arenas is doing in this kind of detailed discursive process of, you know, I think Simo's main point that is like the answers are they're actually these problems are not new problems. Even if the means of circulation is fast and different, the political problems, the social problems aren't new, and that's something I'll definitely take away.
Okay, Simo or Sarah, which one? Okay, Steve.
I can start, but thank you very much. I actually, in addition to everything that I've learned here and all the different things that I will take away, this is really an exciting webinar, I think. I was thinking, and this was one of my first questions to Sarah and also to other presenters, these videos, these tools that you have made. I think it would be interesting to compare between the projects when we have advanced a little bit more, like what kind of impact did these tools have? What were the challenges in disseminating them? What kind of solutions were adopted in the dissemination? And how was the impact measured? Because, I mean, this is really, we want actually to make the world a better place, I think. So even though I am not personally involved in these tools, I think it would be very interesting and important to compare those results. That's all.
Thank you, Simo. Sarah?
Thank you, Simo. Yeah, it's a tricky question, isn't it? Because we all know that misinformation can get out there and just is disseminated way quicker than the truthful information, it appears. We are going to be using these videos quite extensively throughout our MOOC training. And they are going to be online. We're going to distribute them and show them at things like this to try and get those videos to be seen. But actually, I think the most powerful way that we can disseminate is for others to disseminate who are, you know, working in the field. We're putting them on YouTube channels and things like that. I mean, Emilia, maybe you'd like to dive in a little bit more in a moment to what I'm saying here about the dissemination. But it is an issue. They are great. You've seen the family tea. It's emotional. It grabs the heartstrings. If we can get that out to people to see, I think we might have an impact. But the impact is one of those very difficult things to define, because particularly with the Smidge project, because we want people to view these and for them to therefore take a momentary pause before viewing the next video that might be presented to them. It's almost impossible to identify when somebody has not done something. So that is the biggest concern, really, when you're trying to change behaviour and you're trying to identify impact. Because I might be able to turn around and say, well, 4.5 billion people on the world didn't go down the extremist route. I can't prove that. I mean, of course, this is part of the problem we have when countering the misinformation, because like I was saying earlier to Kessie when we were having that little chat at the beginning, the problem is that the misinformation is so embedded and wrapped up with truth that is where we're having the main problem, I think, is to actually to pick out the mistruth, the untruths from the truth. And yeah, so there are issues that I can't say that Smidge has overcome, but we're aware of some of these issues with regards to our counter narratives. Yeah, Emilia, maybe you've got something you'd like to add to that.
No, just regarding the videos, we are having a meeting planned with the team that created them, and we will kind of decide upon that, how we go with the dissemination. So maybe we can come up with some details in a bit, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we are building a strategy for that. It is something that we're well aware of and want to do. It'd be great if we could get it on the television, but that's not going to happen, I don't think. I don't think the BBC would let it run. But yeah, we're going to come up with a strategy. So if you've got any ideas actually about better ways that we can disseminate, or additional ways that we could disseminate, or any ideas at all, we'd be really, really grateful. The more people get to see these videos, the more chance there is that there'll be some impact on that. So yeah, please let us know if you've got any bright ideas.
I think the BBC would be really interested in.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it'd be worthwhile reaching out to them. I mean, do you know anyone that?
Yeah. I'll put them in touch with you. Yeah, I think
that'd be amazing, Kessie. Thank you. That'd be great. Thanks.
Cooperation in action. What we just saw.
Yeah, this is the epistemic community. We're doing it.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay,
thank you.
Can I just throw in one plug, which is our final meeting, just, I know we're against the clock, but our final meeting will be in Bosnia at the end of the project. Everyone is very welcome to attend that meeting. So just connect up with Alex Perkalski and myself, and we'll just put you on the list for Circulate. So that's, right at the end of the project. For us, that is probably February next year, but it will be, we want to really get ourselves over onto the east side. So we'll have Kosovo, Serbia, Bosnia, all in attendance. KCSS is involved, of course, with OppAttune also. So looking forward to that one.
That was brilliant, and I suppose I need to do a similar plug then, because we are also going to be having a final conference at the end of the project, and we would love you to come and join us for that. And we will be having an actual screening of all of the different videos, so you'll have an opportunity to, because you've only seen one. We have several more that on different topics. So we have, obviously this is the immigration one. We have one on anti-vax and climate change. For some reason my brain just went. So we have a variety of different videos that we'll be showing during a screening. So you would be extremely welcome. Yeah.
And that's going to be in Brussels, right? Yes. Yeah, and I guess only Simo is left to extend the invitation. He's feeling under pressure.
I realize that.
No pressure.
I can't actually remember where the final meeting is. It's
Yeah,
probably
it's okay.
in Cergy, near Paris, and of course you are all welcome.
Okay, I think there's two very concrete things that how we will move, and we are very grateful for cooperation. But just want to bring in Lina if you want to have any final thoughts before we close.
I think one of the just a quick thought is that one of the things that all three projects seems to be concerned with is the mainstreaming of extreme content and extreme narratives. And just an observation is also that the political landscape and the social media landscape has changed significantly since we applied for these projects. So there's so much that that's happened politically in the Western world, in the world at large as well, that where these conditions are just undergoing changes so quick. So it's tough to keep up even empirically with the research that we're doing, because it seems to be constantly on the move, and these narratives spread into the mainstream sphere in new and quick ways at the moment.
I mean,
so that
I think
was just an observation.
One of the things we were playing around with is if Elon Musk posts something on a platform that he owns, then the word post is not the right word.
No.
And that's what we need to create a new word. And that means that if we create a new word, the journalists will all use that word. But at the moment, they will, in the 6 o'clock news, they will say, Trump said earlier today, and you'll think, well, no, he did something on his own platform. That's not saying, that's not posting. And maybe, I was thinking, Lina, when I was listening to you, we could call it hype posting or something like that, something that just kind of really separates it from posting the thing that the rest of us are doing.
Yeah, something that challenges his ability to set an agenda through through his ownership of the platform. Yeah,
because it's not the same as the platform that we're on now.
It's not. It's absolutely not. Yeah,
that's really interesting.
This is amazing.
And the idea of hype, it's exactly what they're doing, hyping their own opinions on their own platform. So you could say hyping. I think we should work on this. Yeah. I think it's a thing, and I think you're right, Casey, that once you can get a particular word out there, it will get
small, and it will move as fast as soon as you get the mainstream to pick up on what everyone's saying. As soon as you get the mainstream, give the mainstream a word that is fast and sounds like they're totally cutting edge because everybody wants to be that. Then that's the challenge, I think, is to move as fast as these kind of destructive characters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Perhaps we can
have to shut us up now, you see, because otherwise we just keep talking.
No, I think this is fascinating, but it just shows that perhaps we should think of doing this kind of maybe a workshop style on this challenge that Casey posed about thinking of how we can introduce this word, although it seems there is some kind of consensus on hyping instead of posting, but just to express our deepest gratitude from myself and Emilia from KCSS and Inclusive Europe to you for this fantastic presentation, but also this discussion right at the end that I think was very fruitful and bringing the point, I think, home of this platform accountability and people who owns these platforms and use them for different purposes, and how we can introduce more ethics into their utilization of these instruments. From my end, I want to again thank you also the colleagues who stayed with us to the end, who are following the webinar, to all the comments and questions, and I guess this is goodbye from us, and we will see you into next events. We already have the invites for Sarajevo, Brussels, and wherever the arenas will have. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week from our end. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good day.